It's now time to take a look at the newspapers, a review of the headlines on the front pages. And to do that with us today is a lawyer and public affairs analyst, Barrister Jide Ologun. Good morning to you and thank you for joining us.
Morning.
Good morning and glad to have you, Cam.
Thank you.
All right, so let's start off with the Daily Trust. Major story, soldiers, Shiites clash again in Abuja, many feared killed. Just about a few days apart. 2-3 days apart. And this happened again yesterday in Yanya, Abuja. How do you feel about this?
Yeah, you know, it all started in 2015 December when there was a major clash between the convoy of the Chief of Army Staff and the followers of El Zazaki that led to killing of about 300, followers, even though the military denied that. And thereafter, the leader and his wife were incarcerated. And despite the decision of the court that the continuous incarceration is illegal, they are still being kept. And you can see the followers now grouping to protest. And the question we should be asking is, what is leading to this protest? So you link it up with the respect for the rule of law. And you can look at the potential of this group because they are becoming defiant now. And that is how Boko Haram also started. So we are counseling the relevant stakeholders to please handle this with care. And the Amnesty International and the global community is not viewing it softly because it's like, allegation of use of force. Against unarmed civilians who are protesting.
But there have been questions of these people. Do they have the right to protest?
Under the Nigerian Constitution, fundamental human rights. So there are procedures they must go through, and there is a way they should carry this out.
Okay.
But from the report we are having, outright shooting as against civil control is condemnable, definitely. But the military will always have an argument in support of that.
Anyway, we'll still discuss this pretty much later on. So let's just move on. From the top left, NHIS, boards lack power to suspend CEOs of agencies. FG talking there, in fact, the secretary to the government of the Federation. But you wonder why it took this long before this clarity has been made.
The laws will stipulate what should be done. I think quite a number of times it is how we interpret the laws that bring problems. And it's not just the law of the land, even the laws of God. Sometimes to suit our purpose, we bend it a little bit. But the point is that we have elements of insubordination. The question we should be asking is that, is an individual subject to the board, or is the board subject to the individual? And of course, if we have issues like this, is it the business of the police to force the man to resume, or for him to approach the court?
To interpret
so there are several issues here, and we must not in any way erode the power of the rule of law. If not, we'll be setting terrible precedents. And that means tomorrow anybody can judge, because you recall that this is the arm of the executive.
Absolutely.
And of course, we have the judiciary and the legislative arm of government.
All right, so to other stories, 2019 era of just awarding votes over, Buhari says 15 public firms failed to remit 8.1 trillion naira in 5 years, in fact, between 2010 and 2015. Minimum wage, FG governors meeting continues today. I will defeat Buhari, Atiku, Ezekwesili says. Listing plans plagued by CBN, AGF issues. That's MTN.
The Nation is next, and it puts a picture to what transpired in Abuja yesterday. Thousands stranded as Shiites protest in Abuja. And you see stranded commuters and motorists during the Shiites protest to push for the release of their detained leader, Ibrahim El Zagzaki. That happened yesterday. Buhari, vote fraud. A vote fraud era gone. INEC ready for free, fair polls. No doubt a right step in the right direction. Wouldn't you say that?
Yeah, it is expected that elections be free and fair. But how free and fair can they be in Nigeria? And I have said it, the electorate have their mindsets on how they will vote in 2019.
That's right.
And of course, you expect that politicians should be rolling out their drums and, of course, confident of winning. But what we all want to see is that the impact of governance is felt in the society. And this can only reflect in seeing the development. And we won't stop calling for that.
And many would wonder that with the two state elections conducted recently, is Nigeria moving towards that?
You know, there are two sides of arguments. You know, INEC came out to tell us that the guidelines permit them to declare the election inconclusive, even though we have stipulations in our constitution on what to do. You see, but like I said earlier, it's a matter of interpretation. But there was an obvious gap that before the inconclusiveness, a particular party was leading. And I think that is remarkable for me, because the people decided to exercise their voting powers in response to the reality on ground.
Absolutely.
And I know that someday we get there. And someone said that it is not those who come to vote that make the votes count, but those who count the votes.
There's an interesting
we also
quote
hope
here.
that those who count the votes will be conscientious enough to make it free and fair.
We have to move on very quickly. Interesting quote here. The president has only one vote. Governors have a vote each, just like anyone else. Let the people vote for whoever they choose without their will being tampered with. That President Muhammadu Buhari. However, PDP alleges smear campaign against Atiku. You can get details of that in the Nation this morning. A BPE to raise 300 billion naira for budget 2018 funding. Ekiti lawmaker dies after gun attack. Governors to meet over proposed 24,000 naira wage today. SGF, boards can suspend CEOs. South African Thai Rural invites Musa, 22 others.
Okay, so we go to the Punch newspaper. Governors hold emergency meeting today over minimum wage. FG seeks common ground with states to stop November 6th strike. You would say is a good thing to do anyway at this time.
Yeah, it is, but we just expect that it should be a sustainable, action and what we can maintain by virtue of the level of economy we operate as a nation, so that it won't just be let's push this forward and we are back to it again.
Okay.
So it should be good that all the issues involved are discussed by the stakeholders. It's quite necessary.
Well, you'd wonder what then was discussed really during the tripartite committee meetings, if they still have this, not an enlarged meeting really, but a breakaway meeting sort of among the executives of federal and state governments. All right, moving on. Other stories now. The foreign story really made it to the front page. A very sad one. It's day of mourning in Indonesia as 189 people die as Indonesian plane crashes into sea. Our hearts go out to them in that country. So to the top of the paper now from the left, Obasanjo, Yadua, Jonathan did nothing on infrastructure. Buhari, one term not enough to fix Nigeria, president.
I think they're all guilty. They have all done disservice to this country. So whether we are talking of President Muhammadu Buhari or they have all managed this country. And I am particularly not happy when I benchmark how much we have spent on Project Nigeria towards what we have spent and the results we have on ground. And of course, somebody said that the essence of succession is to fix what is wrong. This concept of blaming the past, even God says, consider not the things of old. Go ahead. When Joseph came into the palace in Egypt, he came up with a blueprint to secure the nation from famine, and he proceeded to execute. And we are still studying those results today. So we are looking for leadership that will move us forward. If there were no problems, there wouldn't have been a need to vote.
Don't you
a
think
new government.
it's also time to pay attention to what the president is saying? One term not enough to fix Nigeria. I will recall that the former president even suggested a 6-year single tenure. If successive presidents are saying we don't have enough time, shouldn't we pay some attention to that?
This is quite, excuse me, this is quite sensitive. I don't belong to the class of those who will say one time is not enough. It depends on what you are doing. You are building a house, you know the stages of building the house. All right, let's go and study Tanzania under John Magufuli. Let's go and study Rwanda under Kagame. You see, so what have we seen? You know, I'm not, I thank God, but I have challenged this government also that can they send out their aid, the Femi Adesina, the Shehu Gabas, people from the presidency to go and interview Nigerians. I believe that a lot could have been done. And if you notice the trend, I think about 6 months or 8 months ago, quite the attention given to governance diminished. It's about politics and politics. Okay. And I have challenged Nigerians, maybe if you have the investigative zeal, go and find out how well these politicians have done in their private businesses within the same space of time. But so then, I believe that where the will is, we could have done better.
But then using Paul Kagame as an example might not be, you know, on point, knowing that he's been in power for many, many years.
I'm just talking about the will to get things done and the fact that if blame game is a disease, we need to be cured from it. All right. And, you know, hit the ground running.
Okay. Fayemi Mons as shot Ekiti lawmaker dies in hospital. May he rest in peace. Boards have no power to suspend CEOs of parastatals, says SGF. Many feared killed, injured in fresh Shiites army clash. We already talked about that. APC crisis. 36 more reps may dump party before November the 17th. Let's see how that will pan out. Down here, Buhari's government is corrupt, says Ezekwesili. Accident, young shall grow asked to compensate victims' families. And those are the stories on some pages.
And Delhi Sun is next. Scores feared killed in fresh Shiites army clash, several others injured, vehicles destroyed. Igbo will produce Senate president, says APC state tribe. I'm wondering in which Senate? In this 8th Senate, or perhaps
they're beginning to discuss the next Senate. You know, and that is one of the problems we have. Right now, there are promises made to the East in 2023, and we have not even dealt with 2018, 2019, and you know the same promise is offered to the Southwest. So I think we need to discuss
the South are now bickering over
exactly our political unity and go back to history. And I think we discuss that when we get to the next segment.
Alleged graft Fayose regains freedom, faces trial November the 19th. No one is talking about the fact that he got bail. I mean, if he wasn't released, we'll also be screaming about it right now.
We may not be screaming, you know.
Given the precedents.
The former governor is a unique character, you know, and I'm interested in studying him. You know, so I mean, he could have gotten the bail just like Obani Koro and all of them were released. But the questions some of us are asking is, can we drive the judicial process to a conclusion, particularly with the visible facts that we have? And of course, for us to have justice in the criminal justice department, we need thorough investigation, diligent prosecution, and a committed judiciary. So.
In other stories here, Obasanjo IBB, Kalu, others pay tribute to Nene family. Patriarch is gone. Jubilation in Abia North, South as Kalu Wabara make INEC list. Interesting story on the right corner of the Daily Sun. How I was smuggled out of Nigeria. Kanu, IPOP leader, recounts experience on the Operation Python dams.
All right, so we'll go to the Vanguard, which is going to be our last paper for this first installment of review. Yes, death, blood as Shiites soldiers clash in Abuja. Fleeing old woman hits head on median, dies. More feared dead, others injured in Abuja. Motorists, residents scamper for safety. Army, police, Shiites react. And this pictures really depicts what happened yesterday. They're wounded Shiites members being carried by their fellow comrades. An unfortunate incident indeed. And international community is even reacting already. So let's leave that and go to other stories from the top left of the paper. Minimum wage. FG governors divided over figure. Governors meet to brief EMT. Beside it, NHIS, FG warns boards against suspending agencies' CEOs. Privatization better than borrowing to fund budget. BPE is talking there. many experts really on the economy have said that government has no business in business, so privatization is the way to go. Of course, we know that there are some who have been kicking against it because of the, power sector experience.
And that is why I maintain my position on the timing to begin, seeing the goodness we deserve in this country. If you look at how much we have borrowed, I think in 2016, our indebtedness was around 12 trillion naira. Today is the threshold
22.
of 22 trillion. What have we done with these resources? You see, why did we go borrowing? You see, so, and the moment we decide and appreciate the power of national development, that it will further unite us, energize the economy, we begin to prioritize. So that is why I am saying, we are not claiming now that the resources are not there to intervene in the critical sectors. And I'm throwing a challenge this morning. The First Lady came out to tell us the deplorable state of Aso Villa Clinic.
True.
What is the state of that clinic
Now.
today? Let the Shehu Gaba, let them show us. Some of us are willing to visit the place. So we need that responsiveness to situations so that we can upscale. I mean, I want to see my country, people traveling to this country on medical tourism, like we go to the UAE, to Germany, to the UK. And these are elements of development. So we have borrowed so much, but what can we show for what we have borrowed?
Okay, Buhari has failed, but still better than Atiku. Balarabe Musa are talking there. Q3 2018, MTN reports 28.5% loss on digital revenues. Down here, Anini, Saraki, IBB, Obasanjo, Jonathan, Atiku, Tinubu, Umahi, others mourn. Ex-Lagos Speaker, 49 others arrested over murder of policemen. And then Nigeria ranks 33 of 54 African countries in overall governance. Impressive or bad result?
Yeah, I'm indifferent to that. When I saw it, I just said there are so many ratings about my country, but I know that the future will be greater. All these are just to challenge us to do more, and we have the capacity. So it's about deploying the ability to get things done.
All right.
We're a great nation.
Absolutely.
There's no doubt about that.
God bless Nigeria. That's about it on the newspaper review. Of course, we'll keep you for our first discussion.